Hello everyone, we are Ly Tu Tien and Jack.
This is our YouTube channel about the real life of our married life. Please subscribe to support us.
Keep moving. Get in the back. Watch your heads.
Họ đã cướp sợi dây chuyền của tôi và đẩy tôi xuống vực.
Tuyên 10 năm tù giam.
Tu Tien, hãy tha thứ cho mẹ một lần cuối được không con?
Have you ever faced danger so close that survival seemed impossible? In this thrilling story, Tu Tien narrowly escapes a deadly plot orchestrated by her former mother-in-law, a woman driven by greed and ruthlessness. With her husband Jack's unwavering support, Tu Tien gathers the evidence that exposes years of crimes, from theft to attempted murder. As justice unfolds in a tense courtroom showdown, the villain faces a 10-year prison sentence, while Tu Tien and Jack reclaim their peace and freedom. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we dive into this suspenseful, heart-pounding tale of survival, courage, and justice. Tu Tien could still feel the lingering echo of fear vibrating through her chest, her pulse racing as though it had been permanently rewired by the events of that fateful night. The memory of her former mother-in-law's cold, calculating eyes haunted her, the way she had smiled with cruel satisfaction as if the world owed her obedience. That smile, Tu Tien realized, masked a ruthless mind capable of unimaginable acts that had brought her to the brink of death. Only sheer instinct and a fragment of luck had spared her life. She could still remember the sharp pain when the first blow landed, the world spinning around her as she stumbled, desperate to survive. Every step, every breath had been a fight against a shadow that sought to erase her existence. Jack's presence had been her lifeline. He had appeared at the exact moment when her strength was failing, when the darkness had begun to close in like a predator about to strike. His unwavering courage and swift action had pulled her back from the edge, and for that, Tu Tien felt a mixture of gratitude and awe. She realized that in the split seconds between life and death, she had discovered a clarity she had never known before. The malicious intent of her former mother-in-law was undeniable, and it was only a matter of time before justice had to be served. Tu Tien's mind raced as she retraced the events. Every whispered threat, every veiled warning, every subtle manipulation that had led to this terrifying climax. Despite the fear still clutching at her heart, a spark of determination ignited within her. She would not allow herself to be a victim again. The experience had sharpened her senses and hardened her resolve. She thought about the countless lies her former mother-in-law had spun over the years, the way she had poisoned relationships, driven wedges between people, and plotted in secret. All of it now pointed to a single, horrifying truth. This woman was a danger, not only to Tu Tien, but to anyone who stood in her way. The cold thrill of survival mixed with a newfound purpose, and Tu Tien knew what she had to do. She would gather every shred of evidence, every testimony, and every hidden secret, and she would expose the truth. There would be no room for mercy this time, not when her life had been on the line, not when she had been so close to death. For the first time, Tu Tien felt a sense of clarity that outweighed the terror, a certainty that justice, no matter how delayed, would be hers to claim. With Jack by her side, Tu Tien moved with deliberate precision, her mind sharp as a blade. Every detail from that fateful night replayed in her head, each moment a clue, each action of her former mother-in-law a thread in the tangled web of crime she was determined to unravel. She had spent countless sleepless hours piecing together evidence, hidden bank accounts, falsified documents, eyewitness accounts, and the subtle hints of blackmail and coercion that had gone unnoticed by everyone else. Now, all of it formed a damning mosaic that exposed the full scale of the woman's malevolence. Tu Tien felt a chill run down her spine as she realized how close she had come to being silenced forever. How every second had been a fight not just for survival, but for the truth itself. When the authorities arrived, the tension in the room was palpable. Her former mother-in-law's confident facade, the one that had once terrified everyone around her, cracked under the weight of undeniable evidence. She tried to deflect, to fabricate excuses, to charm and manipulate, but every word she spoke fell flat against the mountain of proof Tu Tien had assembled. Her eyes, once so icy and commanding, flickered with fear, desperation replacing arrogance in the smallest of gestures. A trembling hand, a quivering lip, a fleeting glance at Tu Tien that begged for mercy. It was a sight that would have been almost pitiful if not for the gravity of her crimes. Tu Tien stood firm, her gaze unwavering, every ounce of sympathy she might once have felt replaced by a resolute determination. This time, there would be no forgiveness, no second chance. Jack's hand rested lightly on hers, a silent gesture of solidarity and support, grounding her in the certainty that she was no longer alone. The power that her former mother-in-law had wielded over her life had ended. Now it was her turn to assert control, to demand justice, to hold accountable the person who had tried to extinguish her very existence. And as the first officer read the charges aloud, Tu Tien felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The full truth of the woman's actions was finally being laid bare, and the world would see her for what she truly was: a manipulator, a criminal, and a threat. No plea, no tears, no desperate words could undo what had been done. For the first time since that night of terror, Tu Tien felt the tremors of fear subside, replaced by a fierce satisfaction. Justice was no longer a distant hope. It was unfolding before her eyes, step by step, moment by moment. And in that unfolding, Tu Tien understood that survival was only the beginning. The reckoning had just begun, and she would ensure it left no escape for the one who had brought darkness into her life. The courtroom was heavy with tension, a silent witness to the reckoning that had been long awaited. Tu Tien and Jack sat side by side, their hands intertwined, drawing strength from one another as the proceedings unfolded. Across the room, her former mother-in-law sat slumped in her chair, the arrogance that had once defined her existence replaced by a fragile, quivering fear. The weight of the evidence was crushing, the testimony of witnesses damning, and the cold, hard facts of her crimes undeniable. Tu Tien's heart, once filled with terror at the thought of facing her, now brimmed with a fierce sense of justice and vindication. She had survived, yes, but more importantly, she had ensured that the woman who had threatened her life and peace would finally face the consequences. As the judge enumerated the charges, armed robbery, conspiracy, and attempted murder, the reality of it all sank in. 10 years. 10 long years in prison for the actions that had once left Tu Tien trembling in fear, that had threatened to erase her very existence. She could see her former mother-in-law's eyes welling with tears, not for the harm she had caused, but for the punishment she herself now faced. The sight was chilling, a reminder that power built on cruelty was always fleeting, and that those who preyed on others eventually faced a reckoning. Tu Tien felt no pity. This was not revenge, it was justice. And justice, she realized, was far more satisfying than any fleeting notion of forgiveness could ever be. Jack squeezed her hand gently, a silent promise that he would always protect her, and that together they could face anything that life threw their way. Tu Tien exhaled slowly, letting the tension leave her body in waves, a sensation she hadn't felt in months. The nightmare that had shadowed her life was finally lifting. She had faced death, survived, and now witnessed the law take its course, righting the wrongs she'd endured. And yet, even as the gavel fell and the sentence was pronounced, Tu Tien knew that this moment was not just an end, it was a beginning of freedom, of safety, and of a life reclaimed from the shadows of fear. As the former mother-in-law was led away, her pleas echoing faintly behind the heavy doors, Tu Tien felt a deep, unshakable peace settle over her. She had stared into darkness and emerged unbroken, her strength tempered by trials and her heart bolstered by love. Justice had been served, and she would never again allow anyone to threaten the life she had fought so hard to protect. For the first time in what felt like forever, Tu Tien looked at Jack, a smile lighting her face, and knew that together they could face the future without fear. The past, with all its danger and deception, had been conquered, and the path ahead was theirs to walk, free and unburdened.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tử Tiên and Jack Story. Vậy là trong câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay thì mẹ chồng của Lý Tử Tiên đã phải trả giá cho tội ác của mình. Mặc dù bà ta đã van xin Lý Tử Tiên và Jack hãy tha thứ cho bà ta một lần cuối cùng, nhưng Lý Tử Tiên và Jack lần này không khoan nhượng cho bà ta, bởi vì đây không phải là lần đầu bà ta gây ra tội ác đối với Lý Tử Tiên. Và án tù 10 năm bà ta sẽ phải đối mặt với án tù 10 năm ở trước mắt. Các bạn nếu thấy câu chuyện ngày hôm nay hay, hấp dẫn, hãy cho mình xin một nút like, share và để lại comment ở dưới video nhé. Đặc biệt đừng quên bấm vào nút subscribe để đăng ký kênh, sẽ nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại vào ngày mai. Bye bye!